Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm at Apex 2018 and I'm joined by Tom Forsythe from Kyzen. Tom, always a pleasure to see you at these shows. Lots going on. One of the things that's really stood out at the show this time for me has been collaboration. We've seen many examples and there's no better example than CFX. Have you been involved in that and what have you seen as a result of that?
We are getting involved in CFX. This whole idea of, let's face it, goes back to the SMEMA days, right? Where the everything on the line has always needed a little chatting.
Yeah.
Historically not a lot of chatting, but a little chatting. But now we're swimming in data. And of course the CFX demo that's going on this week. Well, I heard an hour ago that the data points were up to 600,000 data points in 3 days with a dozen or two folks participating, which means that that's too much data without a lot of processing and understanding. And I think that's kind of the key of where this is going to, how this is going to evolve, right? If we can all speak a similar language underneath, that will help with some crosstalk and some of the influences if you're an SPI guy and it needs to talk to the printer, or, that sort of thing. But I do believe that sector specialist understanding, that tribal knowledge that says, oh yeah, when this number moves, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
That the CFX world will never know because they don't have that sector tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a critical element, and how that evolves, I think will be fascinating to be a part of.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you about the tribal knowledge and what I like to think of as domain expertise.
Yes, better word,
domain
expertise.
What I'm looking forward to is not talking about CFX when we kind of just, everything's connected, everything talks, and we take that for granted as we do electricity. So I think that will allow us to then start to add value on top. And that's where that domain expertise comes in. Your cleaning expertise then allows you to manage that cleaning data, and you've got products that already do that.
We do. We're working that hard and have for the past while with great acceptance. It's customers are eager for information. They're swimming in some cases they have a dearth of data, so therefore they're desperate for data. But more often there's plenty of data. I mean, if we're generating 600,000 data points in 3 days, maybe we can slow the baud rate down.
Yeah,
but that, how do we convey the proper information to people so they can see those trends, make sure their lines keep operating. No one wants a line stoppage for something that was easily avoided. Little things like silly things. In our case, right, fluids go in and they're cleaning agents and they make things clean. They come out of a container. Well, when the container's empty, they can't come out. If I wait until it's empty to tell you it's empty, well, you may have to go a great distance to fetch a new one.
Yeah.
If I tell you 12 hours in advance, then you can have it sitting next to it. You don't have that completely avoidable disconnect. And I think that's a very simple example, but I think in our domain and in many other domains, there are countless examples of that sort of stuff, completely unforced errors, that this sort of approach can vastly decrease, and I think that's a real win for the industry.
Yeah, and it's converting data to actionable data. That's
right.
what we need,
That's the key.
actionable data that allows us to make better and faster decisions.
Or not make a decision at all. I mean, the reality is if the system is doing its job, in our case, our control systems, now that it's more visible because we've pushed all the data to the cloud, but back in the 90s when we were selling them and the PLC was making decisions quietly that no one noticed until the drum was empty, it was noticing that it was a pint low and it added a pint. And it was doing those things. We didn't have to make that decision anymore. That was the value add to the customer. And I think there's promise for that in more and more areas in a richer data experience and in a world where the software becomes more and more sophisticated so it can do a better job.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the key here. The engineers are as stressed as they've ever been. The operations and production people are as stressed as they've ever been. The more these systems can take a bit of that load off, take the unforced errors and make them just easy to execute without a time crunch, I think we really add value and quality of life, frankly, to their daily existence.
Yeah. And who'd thought Kyzen's a software company?
Go
things
figure.
change.
Things evolve, and it's all about value to the customer. Our philosophy, we coined a phrase a few years ago, this idea of where science and care converge. If we care about the life experience of our customer, how's their life? How do we make their life a bit easier?
Yeah.
These are the kinds of developments that naturally fall out of that. We bring the technology to bear. If their life is better, we're doing something right, we'll do okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, I think, as I said, CFX is a great example of collaboration. IPC doing just what IPC should do, bringing people together. Today they've got a STEM initiative, they've got 70 students in the building. Another great example and a really important topic.
Absolutely. The STEM stuff, that's a real challenge here in the States. There's certain countries that are great at generating lots of STEM students. We less so. And I think it's wonderful that IPC is putting some resources behind that, getting that word out. I heard a great vignette from John Mitchell. Chatted with him after the keynote the other day, and the fellow that gave the keynote is a very well-known figure in the industry. Well, they had a breakfast with some students, and they said, "Come on in, look decent because you're going to meet somebody interesting." He said they were all starstruck because they knew exactly who this guy was, and they were wowed by it and thrilled. And does that help them stay interested and get that word out? Maybe it does. I think it was a great thing. Small thing, easy to do, but just a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and I agree. Jared Cohen is a rock star to that generation, and that's an awesome thing. It's important that we get the next generation of engineers in. Tom, always a joy to chat. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk again next time.
Absolutely.